I'm Batool Almarzouq. I'm based in the UK, but I'm speaking from Saudi today. I'll hand it to Richie and Sandy also to introduce themselves. Richie, do you want to start?
Yeah, good day, everyone. So I'm Richie Moluno, a software engineer, currently based in the UK also as a student of Aston University, master's student, yeah. So over to you, Sandy.
My name is Goodnews Sandy. I'm a software developer and open source contributor. I'm currently at the African Union at Addis Ababa. I work as a digital transformation strategist at African Union. I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Batool, go ahead.
Thank you, Sandy and Richie. So yeah, if you always read left to right, like most of the web, this is probably completely very wrong to you or very disoriented to you. Again, this is right. This is how write a lot of text. It will twist your brain a little bit, give you a chance to see how we who speak write a lot of language see your text. So this is our experience actually every day online. When we read, our brain follows very different pattern. For example, for left to right users, that means expecting everything, text, logo, starting point to be on the very left. For right to left users, it's the exact opposite. And this sort of mismatch creates a lot of frustration, not just for right to left users, but also for designers, for developers. When we go back into the early day of the web, non-Latin script was not supported by directionality. This to be usable. I'm hearing very strong noise background. Can you hear me quite well?
Yes, we can. Maybe one of the speakers has some noise background.
Would you be able to mute the other speakers while I'm giving my part, and then we can unmute? Okay, thank you. So yeah, going back to the slide, in the early days of the web, non-Latin script was not very supported. So bi-directionality used to be a huge problem. People who speak right to left, non-Latin script are totally dismissed. But with the development of the Unicode, things got a little bit better, but not massively. So the first time, just very short story, first time I went to the UK in 2008, I lived with very nice, thoughtful roommate. She was really very kind. She once did very nice gesture to me. She passed me very nice note, and she printed it in Arabic. She made the translation in the web, and that note was say thank you, just 2 words, thank you. But it took me around, I think, 3 days to figure out how to read it and what it says because of the way it's being translated in the web. Just to give you a context, one thing to know about Arabic, which is extremely different than English, Arabic letters change their shape depending on the position of the word. So Arabic is written in a very connected, flowing way, kind of like cursive in English. So each letter can have up to 4 sort of different forms and shape. And that character looks very different when they are isolated at the beginning of the word, at the middle, at the end. And it's extremely important that you have the correct shape. Otherwise,
we have lost your sound.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Can you maybe check your setup?
Can you not hear me very well? Is that what you're saying?
No, still cannot hear you.
Can you not hear me? Sure.
Yes, you're back now.
Okay, I think probably I was muted. Okay, I don't know which part you've lost me in, but going back to this. Again, one thing to know about Arabic, which is extremely different than English, Arabic letters change their shape depending on the position in the word. Like Arabic is written in a very connected, flowing way, kind of like cursive in English. So as I mentioned, each letter can have very different forms and shape, and it's very important that you have the correct shape. Otherwise, it's very impossible to read that word. And what happens sometimes, the web does not only align the word, like does not just take that sentence and put it in the left, but also it breaks down the letter in isolated form, making it totally unreadable. And it doesn't stop here as well if it break out the characters, but it's also changing the order. So that letter would go backward and change the order of the letter, which make it extremely like gibberish. Not Arabic. There's no Arabic speaker can actually figure out this from this. But that's what a lot of the tools that we use in the web does. And again, just to give you a sense of how the life of right to left users is extremely painful in the web. So again, the web is being designed to fit certain language, dismiss huge geographies, reflect that sort of power dynamic that exists in technology, which is dominated by certain groups. Again, you can see that many of the tools, text editors that we use as developer to write code, until very recently, many of them does not support right to left or even non-Latin script. It's very hard process for coders, for developers actually to use these tools in their own sort of language to develop things that fit their own communities. Again, what I want to highlight is that it's not just about translating websites, app. It's about that mental model of right to left users. How does it work? How does it process information? Where their eyes land? Right to left users has always, like me as a right to left user, I have to flip my mind. I have to flip my mind to be able to be part of that web and to understand it, where it's not supposed to be the case. Again, there is at least 2 billion people who sort of use right to left languages, and that's the sort of experience that they have every time. When we were building our community in the Arab region, and particularly to promote open science, we learned so many of these lessons the very hard way. Not just, again, as users, but also as developers trying to develop open source tools or open education resources. Just to give you context, very quick context about the community, its mission is to support the adoption of open science practices, best practices in the Arab region. So sparking this new sort of open science movement, we were able to support and champion different community builders in Iraq, in Egypt, empower researchers and practitioners to forge that sort of global connection with the international community, and most importantly, mentor and champion the next generation of researchers to adapt open science practices and contextualize it to the region. And for that, we started to build tools, open education resources. Sandy gonna walk you through the MOOCs platform that we created as well with the community. I'm gonna hand it to you, Sandy.
All right, thank you so much, Batool, for that section. And I'll be taking on from there to talk about our experience and consideration we took into place to design a platform that supports right to left language, in our case, Arabic. The Open Innovation Platform, Batool, you're going to help me with the navigation. Thank you. The Open Innovation Platform is a platform that provides educational resources for your research and for open courses that are out there. It's all about accessibility and breaking barriers to educational resources. That's what we created the platform for. And it's all currently localized to support Arabic language. And in designing this platform, next page, in designing this platform, we had a couple of challenges in terms of the UI, the technical part and the non-technical part, the localization, ensuring that things actually reflect the language of the users. And these are a couple of experiences I want to share and how we're able to work around in some areas. Okay, in right to left language, you basically understand that the English speakers speak from left to right, and Arabic speaker will read the direction from right to left. That's how they view it. They're reading direction left to right and right to left. And this looks like a simple thing because the left to right is just a mirror flip of the right to left. So you might think as a designer, okay, I'm just going to flip the directions, and which is not always as easy as it seems, because in changing the directions, you also have to ensure that the context, the meaning of the word itself is not lost in the translation and localization process. Next slide, please. So it's I'm going to talk about some instance of where we had issues and things you put into considerations in your designs. I'm going to use this. I'm going to summarize it based on entities types. That's based on the strong, the weak. Entity types based on the word itself. There's some words that are strongly affected by the direction of the entity around it, or there's some ones that are not affected, and there's some ones that are neutral. Next slide. So I'm going to summarize my instance examples based on these entity types. Okay, let's take, for example, you have a login page where you have an English speaker. You also have an input field for English speaker. You have an input field for an Arabic speaker. That's someone that's going to put in content from right to left. So for the English speaker, we know how it's positioned from left to right. We're going to read it that way. But for an Arabic speaker, what do you see? Let's go to the next slide, Batool. You're going to see that we have the word, the inputs for an Arabic speaker, still starting from right to left, but nothing changed. The alphabet did not change, did not flip, so to say. It did not flip. So you could notice that this instance is an instance of a strong entity type where, let's just say, for example, you are reading some content, you could see that, yes, the content is written from right to left, but there's some particular English words that did not change directions. So that those are very strongly typed, right? So those are instances you would encounter in your designs, and you have to also work around that. Next slide. An example is also, an instance is also emojis, where emojis can be used, but then if you change the direction, it gives another meaning. For example, the first one, you could see that that's a smiling emoji. Which direction you want to read it, whether from right to left, it's still going to be a smiling emoji. We read it from right to left. But let's just take, for example, the D emoji, where you are reading from left to right. You could see the direction of the mouth is open mouthed, and it's like it's laughing, it's loud and happy. But if you flip it and you flip the direction of that emoji, you could see that gives another meaning. That direction of the mouth that's open is in another direction, and that's another meaning for the user that's reading from right to left. That's an angry person. That's not an happy smile. So you could see how emojis you can see how some icons, some contents can affect the meaning of words in terms of the language. Let's go to another instance as well. Navigation too. Let's say, for example, you are building a button. Your platform has this button. A typical left to right English speaker sees back with the arrow. On the left hand side, we are going to the back. We are going back, right? And the arrow to the right hand side goes, we are going forward. We are going to the next page. But if you flip this, if you decide to flip, change it to right to left so that the user reads it from right to left, without also capturing the interactions behind this button. If you don't capture the interactions behind this button, you could see that for a right to left speaker, if it clicks on the forward button, it's going to get an interaction that goes backward. And if it clicks on the back button, it's going to get an interaction that goes forward. So there's a conflict there. So in your design, you have to ensure that not just changing the directions of things, the actions behind it is also captured. That's the way to also ensure that your users are actually using the platform that is meant for the language of the user. And also redo and undo. Those are the same scenarios, the same case that applies with the navigation. So you can see that some icons, you don't necessarily need to use icons because it's an icon. You have to use it because of the meaning behind it, not just because of the known meaning for an English speaker. You have to understand that some known meanings has different meaning in another language. So next page. Yeah, and it's likewise for horizontal bar. For a left to right speaker, that's an English speaking person, you read that 30% there is a progress. That's a progress for you have completed 30%. But for a right to left, if it is flipped the other way, reading from the right to left, it's like you have 30% left for you to be completed. So these are instances that happen during our designs, and there are a lot more than this, but these are examples of instances that happen during our designs, and it's things that you put into consideration when you are trying to design for a multiple language, especially for a right to left language. And in summary, I want to say that in design for right to left language, you have to ensure that the content itself, the meaning of the word is captured in the content. Within the context, it's not lost because of an icon, because of or maybe because of navigation. And you have to ensure also that your UIX, your design is consistent throughout the pages. These are ways you get to ensure that your user actually use your products or your platform. It's not an easy journey, but I'm glad to say that we are putting effort into representation in terms of localization. And at this junction, I want to hand it over to Richie to continue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sandy. So I'll be going over basically GS Quarter. So GS Quarter is a tool we built on our end to relieve us of the stress of having to handle manual translations and localizations in different languages. Some of the challenges we faced while working with translations and localizations in right to left languages was that there was no like direct support for multilingualism, especially in right to left language like Arabic. And also we checked existing packages across other languages too. Some examples are JSDoc, MQDocs, and PhoenixJS. And the main problems was the ease of translation and localization, also the flexibility of designing docs, as well as the developer's experience. And these were the kind of the issues that pushed us or motivated us to work on this too. So the main aim of this tool is just to improve the support for multilingualism and also improve the ease of generating these docs, while also supporting JavaScript, because as you know, JavaScript is more like the most used language across the web. Yeah. So moving on, next, please. Yeah. So like I said, GS Quarto, it supports the core engine of GS Quarto is crowding. We basically use crowding for the translation flow. So how crowding works, crowding has like different integrations that help with translation to different languages. One of it is the translation management system that has translation memory, machine translation. The machine translation is basically excellent integrations, so other automated tools like AI integrations like Google Translate, Microsoft Translate, and these AI tools, they help with translating your documentation to other languages. However, these AI translation or other integrations, they have minor shortcomings in terms of the context, translation in context, where you can see translations not exactly matching the context that they were supposed to be applied for. And these were also other issues we had to put into consideration. And crowding also offers other implementations that can fix this, which is the translation memory. Translation memory is just basically where other translators might have translated this particular text in other projects, but you can just import or reference these translations. And also on crowding's end, they also prioritize manual translations from translators. So even if we are seeing translations from Google Translate and the rest being imported in your project, you also have the liberty to manually correct, edit, and modify these translations before they are being imported in your project. So on our end for GS Quarter, our integration basically gathers your documentation, generates your documentation in these different languages and exports it to crowding. Crowding does the whole translation processes. If there are translators behind the scenes working on the translation, they do all the fixes, then after it is done, it is then imported back into your project without you having to do anything. Next, please. All right, so the main, like I said, the main aim of GS Quarter is just helping you to generate this documentation in different language and make the process as easy and smooth as possible. So with GS Quarter integration, all you need to do is just specify the different languages. If it's English, Arabic, Hebrew, or whatever, you just specify the shortcode for it and your documentation will be generated. We also support other integrations. Next slide, please. We also support other integrations with GitHub. So GitHub helps with automating the whole process of generating documentation, synchronizing with crowding, and getting your generated documentation. And I think that's about it. I think I'll move on to Batool. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the audience?
No, Batool, are you there?
Oh, I thought you were done with. So go ahead. You are muted. I will unmute you 1 second, or you can unmute yourself too. No, I still cannot hear you. Still cannot hear. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah, so just very, very quickly, I want to take you outside the technical aspect and reflect outside it. When we say internationalization is critical, this is because language is extremely, extremely powerful and giving people agency in their own knowledge system and the tools that they serve. And I think it's really, really important to understand this phenomena reflect more wider sort of power dynamic that exists in the web and the big tech. And I love this quote by Edward Said, Palestinian academic, who said, ideas, culture, everything around us cannot be seriously understood without really understanding their configuration of power. As developer, designing tools, we need to prioritize and think really carefully about internationalization, keeping in mind those who are often dismissed in that power structure, in the knowledge system, in the technology and politics. And I think this is where actually funding should go. This is where true EDI should be, outside that sort of performative gesture that fills the tech world. Yeah, and I will end it here. Thank you so much.
Right now, yes, if we have some questions from the audience, maybe. Please.
Thank you very much. Not enough people talk about RTL. I was wondering if you recommend any good resources where people can read more about it, especially free resources as well.
You are muted again.
Muted.
Batool.
I keep doing that, sorry. Yeah, there's really good resources that Marielle has created. I'm going to put it in the chat, but she basically explain all the technology, all things that you have to keep it in mind when you start to create website apps in terms of like, particularly when you mix between two different languages, like English and Arabic or English and Hebrew or Farsi, where direction goes opposite side. So yeah, I'm going to put some of these resources in the chat. I just have one screen, so I was having difficulty navigating things. And I'm also going to put in the chat some of the resources that the community has sort of developed in the chat a bit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
Hi, thank you for the talk. It was really cool. I agree, not enough people talk about right to left and other language orientations. So I've done a bit of design work with kanji and Mandarin characters. And one thing I've seen culturally happen in China and Japan is the print media goes right to left and up, down. Sorry, hang on. Yeah, right to left, yeah, and up, down. But the web has kind of culturally in Japan and China kind of moved to a more quote unquote like Western left to right. Do you see like cultural changes happening in like Arabic languages at all?
Yeah, I know I've read about that, like how people sort of struggled in this community, that they try to sort of, the way that they came to do it is actually by doing it, like changing it to, yeah, rather than going horizontal, going sort of left to right. That's impossible in Arabic. That's impossible in Farsi. That's impossible in a lot of different languages. You can't do that. It won't make sense. The way that we even read books is like the different side. Like it just is totally different way of writing, linguistically reading, and it's different, yeah, way of mental model actually in how we process information. There is no way we can switch our language to be left to right. I think technology is the one that should be switching, not the other way around. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah.
If there are no more questions.
Eric, could you try going out to full screen?
Yes, maybe there. Yes, maybe there are. Also, yeah, I think she's. Batool sent one source. Yeah, one-stop shop for explanation about right to left languages.
RTL-WTF.
Yeah, we have one question from the chat. It says, what has been the biggest challenge in creating this project?
I think there's not a lot of support, as you mentioned. There's no many sort of within the open science and open source, you see a lot of focus in different areas in open science and open source, but not a lot of sort of funding and support around these aspects, multilingualism, localization, as you mentioned, like right to live design. And these are really, really very, very hard. Like when we were sort of trying to create when we were trying to create this sort of platform, we needed to create a package. We needed to create so many things to be able, something that you can, if it was for English speakers, it would have been done, probably we will have spent like half of the time that we spent it on it when we sort of develop it for Arabic speakers. And I think there isn't a lot of sort of, yeah, as you mentioned, resources is not many. Funding is not many, support in that area is not many. And I think we need sort of, as I mentioned at the very end, I think we need to rethink that when we talk about inclusivity, when we talk about wider participation in the technology and the web, we need to really think very carefully about these things and focus more on it.